Yo, what's happening? First of all, thank you guys for following my story, whoever is on the other side of this camera. But as I'm working my way through this memoir, I realized that there are quite a few gaps in the story. And I call them gaps, but you can't capture every single thing, every single aspect of your life in a book. You go through and you write these things, and you're like, okay, this story's been told pretty well, but you get to a point of reading it, and I'm looking back like, oh, you know what? There are some things that I did not capture here. So I see this as an opportunity as I'm working my way through reading to add some color to the story. And being that I just told you something about my father, I gave you his backstory. Well, not necessarily his backstory, but his story as it relates to me, and leading up to the time of his passing when I was 18 years old. And I'm about to get into more. After talking about his death, I want to talk about his life. And don't get me wrong, my father was a great man. He did so much to mold me into being who I am, but our relationship was not necessarily A1 all the time growing up. And as I've gotten older, I realized that me and my dad are basically the same person now. And when I say the same person, I mean that on multiple levels. I've had conversations with aunts and uncles. One aunt in particular, and one uncle, who just in absolute awe. They just sit. Both of them did the same thing, while they're talking to me, because we look so much alike, and our personalities are so much alike as I got older, that they just sit down and they're looking like, it's like I'm talking to my brother. And I can't imagine how fascinating that would be, because my father passed away in 2001, January 2001. And imagine 2010, 2022, 2023, you're talking to somebody who looks just like your sibling who passed away 10, 20 years ago in that same form, as I am now. So, I recognize that. So we have a lot in common now, but growing up wasn't always that way. So I'm going to share a little bit about our differences, because it helps you to form a clearer picture of my father and the dynamic of our relationship as I was growing up. So my father, you're gonna learn here soon, was phenomenal athlete. Strong man. This guy was the type of person who'd go to an arm wrestling competition, never arm wrestled before, and win. I've heard stories about him as a younger man. He was out on the on the pogey boat, which in the small town we grew up in, this pogey boat would go out, and you didn't have to have a whole lot of qualifications to go out and make a ton of money, but you just had to be willing to be offshore and be out for a few weeks, month at a time. But I heard stories about him bench pressing so much weight and showing off while doing it, that he just rests the weight on his chest, take a bite of a sandwich, and then go back to what he was doing, bench pressing. I've heard, now this may be some urban legend, but I've heard it enough to where at least I know the story's gotten around. Whenever he was a teenager, there was a guy. They had an altercation. He punched this guy so hard. This is the story that I've heard from other people. I'm not making this up. Back in the 70s, everybody had the afro picks in the back pocket. Everybody had the afros. Pop punched this dude so hard that whenever he hit the ground, sparks flew out. I didn't say it. I heard it from other people. Sparks flew out from his butt. Okay? But this is how strong my father was. Even if it didn't happen like that, that's the story that's told. Guy wrestled and beat a bear in a nightclub. Bears coming through, traveling town to town, comes to the nightclub, and my dad beat the bear, won the money. He's just the type of person he was. So whenever I was growing up, I wanted to be more of an academic than an athletic person. but I was actually a great athlete. I just didn't have the passion. Showing lack of passion. There was one time I was, my dad was already sick at this time. My parents had gone off to Houston. They scheduled all their doctor's appointments but they'd all schedule them a few days at a time. And at that point, I'm a high school senior. My brother's a sophomore. We could manage. We could manage to get to school, and they can take care of all my dad's medical business. We're playing a basketball game, and keep in mind, we've moved from a bigger city, been playing AAU, learned some more organized basketball, back down to the small town that we grew up in, and with all humility, I'm the coach, and me and my brother are the star players of the team. So we played the number 4 team in the state, and I'm the tallest one. So when the ball goes down, these guys had a center. This guy was a monster. I'm covering the center. When the ball goes to the top, I'm covering the point guard. And we were hanging in there till about halftime, and then I got gassed, and these boys just kind of opened it up. Now, there was a time, just to give you an idea of who I am, and even though I'm a really nice guy, I've had an issue in the past with I don't want to say insubordination, but disrespect and not allowing it to slide. Somebody passes the ball from my team. The ball gets stolen. The ball's passed down. They get a fast break, and the guy goes down and he dunks it, man. The whole gym goes crazy. We're in the other school's gym. Gym goes crazy. Ah! Well, at this point, I'm super gassed. I could have made it and blocked that shot, or at least made an attempt. I just didn't have it. I've been doing everything. So my coach called a timeout. He goes off of me. Now, keep in mind, this coach doesn't know a whole lot about basketball. Small town. They threw him in the basketball thing, but he's looking like a hero because he's got these guys who really know ball, and we're bringing these plays from the city, and we're basically doing the coaching. So, man, he called me chicken it for not making that play. I was gassed, man. So I looked at him. Oh, so we calling names now? All right, bet. And I walked away, bro. I walked away in the middle of the game. Went to the locker room, came back dressed with popcorn, and I sat and watched these boys get blowed out for the rest of the game. Totally inappropriate. But my parents weren't there, and I did something I know I wouldn't have got away with if they were. So my dad, being the athlete that he was, which you're about to learn about here as the story goes on, being an academic kid, it wasn't always, we didn't see eye to eye, because he wanted something that my younger brother ended up giving him later, 2 years after I was born. So I'm looking at my mom's photo album just this morning, and this is what sparked this video. I'm looking at these test scores that I have. In my 6th grade, the national percentiles of these test scores, California Achievement Test is what we took back then. Out of 9 or 10 different sections, I'm scoring 95 percentile in all of them. And there was 2 where I scored the maximum possible score. That's phenomenal. I don't think my parents realized how smart I was. I'm smart, but they didn't really realize what that meant. Probably even reading that. But my dad, he wanted an athlete. I was a 135-pound state champ wrestler, as a youth wrestling as a kid. I was great in basketball, football, track, but I was not passionate. And that caused a rift between me and my dad. And in some ways, I've talked about this with my brother as we've gotten older. In some ways, my mother and my father, there was a split there between the children, and I'll kind of leave it at that, man. I don't want to say one had one kid and one had the other, but man, it was almost like that. So my dad, phenomenal person, but I don't want to heroify him, because we all have flaws, and I've used some of the things that I've learned from my father, and looking back, and I've improved upon who I am. And hopefully, as you're going through my story, you can improve upon who you are and learn some things too. Peace.